Okay. So we're reconvening after we thought out.
Yeah, this is the most jovial film. I think it's great, because usually I get hot here.
Well, it felt good, it felt warm in there in the back.
Yeah.
It coming back, and you certainly got that hit of cold.
My hands are frozen so bad because of arthritis or get cold, so I can't even bend my fingers. So, okay.
Well.
Give me some.
You just won't feel it. It's not that it'll help. You just won't feel it.
What's the thing you wanna, your hands are burning, or you don't wanna feel your head.
Hey, everyone, recorders are on. Stand by eye.
That's true.
At least they know their commissioners are human.
Ooh, that might not be good.
So is our discussion back on?
Yes, our discussion's back on.
I would like to, if I may,
All right,
Madam Mayor.
Todd has the floor.
I am a staunch believer when it comes to budgets and going off your budget, that it's nickels and dimes that break the bank. We're always gonna notice the big dollars that bring us down, but we never know the little things, because we just look at it as, well, that's just pennies and that's just nickels. And I really believe that over the last 20 years, it was the nickels and dimes that put us here, along with the infrastructure. There was times we could have done things. My question, instead of us beating our heads up and trying to figure out who do we lay off, which service are we gonna cut, is there a chance that we can kind of look at everybody's budget, maybe trim off 5%, maybe 10%, just to see where that puts us? Because I watch, and I'm gonna talk from my business view, I watch my stuff, my inventory down to the T, and I can almost tell you certain items that I know I can go 4 days without. I can go a month without. And commissioner audits can even vouch that I can almost call it to the T. And one is because I believe that it's gonna be that nickel and dime. You know, if I buy the product, if I buy a box of 100 gloves, that's over $100-something, $112 to be exact. If I'm only using 2 boxes a week, then I've got 8 boxes sitting there that don't pay the bills, not till I use them. Same thing when it comes to the food. So I'm just kind of curious if we were able to trim, instead of trying to pinpoint one particular area, because as we're going through this thing, you know, a lot of the stuff's here, and we're at some points with it right now that, okay, it's like we've said, the street departments, we're down to almost nothing already. How do we cut that? We can't cut the police department any farther than what it is. We can't cut the EMS, you know, and then there are those that, you know, with the compression coming up and everything, you know, I agree with all that. But maybe if we just took the department all together and go down the list and just say, you know what, let's try it and see what the budget looks like if we cut 5% off of everybody's budget and see where we stand on that. I'm not saying that's gonna be the right way, but at least it gives us an opportunity to see, maybe that's what we gotta do. Maybe it's that we're buying the extra box of gloves, you know, and I'm just using it as a metaphor, but,
I actually
right
think
word?
that that's probably a really good idea, because I think that when some departments over the years have, like you said, with the nickel and dime, so it's built up their budget, and so they're used to living with this budget. I think it's a really good idea, also because, you know, when you said it, just brought me back to all, you know, some of these comments, like we've talked about on Facebook, they're so negative, and they don't understand that at the end of the day, there's a person that you're actually talking about. And so when we're talking about cutting staff, when we're talking about a person, and that affects their livelihood, and, you know, that's a very hard decision. So yes, I think maybe they need to actually cut elsewhere instead of the staff. Or so with a 10%, what I did is I just took 10% off of all the expenditures down at the bottom. And I utilized the one with the $11.50 minimum wage, $1 per hourly, and 2% for salary. We would have to reduce expenditures across the board by $544,945. And that would reduce overall expenditures down to $4,904,510. And then if I pull in the revenue, that actually would That would drop our deficit down to a 280,564. Now, when you talk about a 10%, so I just was looking like, even just at police, because they're one of the ones that has the bigger budget. It's like 136,000 for them. That might be a little hard. I mean, you could, but, so then I ran the 5%. So the 5% would be 272,472, off of, our 5.4 million expenditures. That would put our deficit down to 553,000. It's not perfect, but it's better than 800,000.
And that's with the 5% cut, oh, I got.
That was with the 5% cut,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
And so we would be cutting 272,000 across the board.
I think it's definitely something we should look at doing all together.
It would definitely show the city as a united front, where we're all taking a hit. It's not just one person that was putting that blunt on.
Well, and then when you look at it, like I said, sometimes it comes down to, I call them niceties and necessities. You got two different things. We get used to certain things, living a certain lifestyle, and we try to live that lifestyle even more so. I don't know, that, I'm just putting that out there, this is a
I like
Commission of
it.
Fire.
I really like it too.
I like the suggestion.
My stomach's been in knots, and when I read those, I was like, well,
Right.
that might be actually the best way to approach this.
So Mayor Pro Tem, I certainly approve. I think that's a wonderful idea, and for the remainder of my term, please allow my salary to be a part of, from our side of it. Allow that to go towards a percentage if we end up passing that as far as the cut.
I don't know, but that's the manager, because I noticed that when we need a part sometimes, like even valves and stuff like that, they don't even have it in the warehouse, they have to reorder and take them forever. Is how much is that gonna handicap the city operation?
So it's tight. To give y'all some, I guess, basic background, I don't want it to make it sound like we haven't thought of this idea. We have had meetings with department heads in the past and whittled it down, said what's ultimately a necessity and what's just a dream. Some people come, I want a brand new truck, I want a brand new backhoe. So most of those get cut right off the top. This year we went with the flat budget, consistent with last year, which is the same as to the year we actually sat down and talked to them. Again, there's some things that are necessities. There's certain things, and I guess I'm tapping into public works, which they're a lot more self-sufficient, obviously, than general fund supplemented departments. But for example, you have chemicals, you have required mandatory trainings that you have to upkeep your certification. Same thing with EMS, you have to have those CEUs every year to maintain that. So is this a great idea? Absolutely. We could try to go in there and cut more, but there are some things throughout this budget that we're not going to be able to cut them no matter what, as far as being a necessity. Is there a little waste in there? I don't think much. There could always be some trimming on some of those, and you can cut back on travel, cut back on per diem, which we were able to save some now with COVID. It was nice having everything virtual. It had its pros and cons.
My concern, and I agree with Mark, but I also see another side in that the department heads have this budget all year long. It starts in July and goes through June. And how many checks did we run yesterday? Because they decided to spend their money on the last minute. So do I think that there's some that can be cut? Definitely, I do. And if you're
That's
waiting until the
actually-
last minute to spend your money, then that means you didn't need it to begin with.
That's actually a practice in the military. They do that as soon as they find that the end of the fiscal year is almost up. They try to spend it because they don't want to get less the next year. I know in the Marine Corps, if you save on that budget, they give you an applause, they give you a medal, then they take more money from you.
Exactly. And so when we did have the meetings with the department heads last year, and we did talk about where can we cut, none of them wanted to cut. Oh, I need that, I need this, I need that. Okay, but we also have a deficit, so we do need to cut. So
But you also have to look, the fact is, I remember we needed valves not too long ago for the cemetery thing, and they had to order it. If they didn't have that flexibility, then they won't be able to order it. If you're going to, and that's probably what they do, they save that money for in case those stuff, the items come up for, that they need to buy. And it's not necessarily that they're trying to spend all them, they do want to spend at the end of the budget year, but I think a lot of what happens is they're being conservative enough to be able to operate their department and function within the department. And so they keep being conservative about it. And that's gonna mean to kind of punish them, because if let's say, for example, 3 or 4 more valves go off, at least they have it in, they were able to do it in their budget and pull it out. They might not have anything at the end of the year to spend, but then, let's say none of the valves need it, then he has that money, you know what I'm saying? So, in many ways, you have to be careful that we don't punish them for being conservative.
But see, that's been the case every year, and that's what they do, and I'm not talking about one specific department, I'm talking overall. That has been their thought
And the only
process, is
reason
exactly what Mayor Pro Tem said. If they don't spend it, they're gonna lose it, except we have it. We gave you a flat budget, we're still giving a flat budget, but our deficit's increasing because we're having to pay more in wages. So is it that we try to keep staff? And I understand exactly what you're saying also, Commissioner Moya, but at the same time, if the cemetery, for example, needed those parts to fix the problem, why did it take till June to get them ordered? Why didn't you order them at the beginning of
But
the
the
year?
whole deal-
And then, once your money's out, and
No,
you're
I'm
still
using
having
that-
issues, we have capital outlay, and we have the contingency for emergency that we try not to ever touch. But it's still there, and it's there for that reason.
There'd be a way to get the funds that they needed.
Exactly.
I guess we didn't have it, because let's get real. That cemetery water system has been down since I've been here, and I've been back 6 years. It is now that they've started.
I don't think it's a shortage in parts, Commissioner. They've had the pump on hand for 2-3 months, and I've constantly asked for them to install it, and it took till the beginning of this week to finally try to.
Yeah, but it took 6 years just to get it to that level. I mean,
can't
you,
speak
and every
for
time,
them.
and every time I would question them, because people would get on my case, we didn't have the money in the budget.
Well, that's what they say, but I don't agree with that at all. I can remember one of the very first meetings that I had, as a deputy finance director, and somebody questioned previous finance director for, I think it was even for animal control or police, that they said they didn't have money in their gas to run their vehicles, and that wasn't true, that they do have the money in their budget. So I can't say that. I can tell you that the cemetery has not asked me or city manager for any additional funds for their budget.
If anything, I've been asking them to spend it ASAP so we could get that pump to go. I've offered to get somebody to pay them to install it. This is something that's been going on. So I mean, just with that particular situation, we made sure we budgeted last budget to get the pump. We had enough budget to get valves because we knew things were gonna break when the pump was installed. It's just, it's been drug out far too long, and now it becomes an emergency because we were down, like you said, to the last day of the fiscal year trying to get it cut when this should have happened 2 months ago. And
But didn't you guys have to get a quote for the electrician or somebody to plug it in?
we did, but I could go get 2 quotes right now if I need to. It was just procrastination. We can't have that. And I won't go into it anymore, but
The only reason I use that, and then I don't mean to make it a controversial thing, is because I can recall all the back and forth when the citizens of Tucumcari were complaining about the drought, the mess that the cemetery looked. And I think at one point also, I don't know who runs that department, but there was also a point where they don't have the staff to be able to do the operation also, you know,
And I also would want to go back to the suggestion that we talked about in the last work session, in that if, for example, the cemetery, now when they're trying to put their pump in and they're trying to get their sprinklers going, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of leaks coming up once they get that up and ready, then some of the other crews, such as parks or something, they go and help and they combine so that they can get it done.
they've
Like,
been doing
and you've
things.
also said the same thing, Commissioner Moya, like, we're a team, we need to become the team and work together to get it done.
Park, cemetery, and facilities maintenance have been working together. When there's projects, they need to go mow or whatnot, they all combine, they do what they have to. And that's the kind of things we have to do moving forward to be more efficient, is if they have ample staff, then they help each other out. Like you said, cross-training, you brought it up previously.
Yeah, I understand, but sometimes if you don't have enough staff, you can't even cross.
I'd still rather see us cut budgets than cut staff.
Well, and let me make it clear, making a suggestion like I did is in no way punishing, the departments, for not spending their money throughout the year. It's like we've already said that, in a couple of years, if everything, think Tucumcari is moving. I don't care what anybody says, anything negative, there are good things happening in Tucumcari. And you just look at the real estate market, the buildings being bought up right now. Cannabis isn't the lifesaver, but there's a lot of spinoffs that's gonna be coming from that. The budgets will go back up, but right now, we do have some tough decisions to make. And going through this, how do we determine what we really don't need? Because right now, we're down to the bare bones. We're at that nickel and dime point that now everything looks good. That's just like I said, that's just.
And then
a
without
suggestion.
punishing the community as well, such as the rec center, so.
Well, certainly putting it back in the hands of the department heads and have the boots on the ground, see where they can trim it. I mean, I think anybody can go back and look at your personal finances. You can always find some fat to trim.
And I think we've got some great department heads, because look what they've done with the budgets in the past. They've worked really hard to maintain inside of them. But this is, I do think that there are some consolidations we can do, but at the end of the day, I think, and consolidations, even if, whatever it all comes down to, at the end of the day, I think maybe we should look at every budget and make it straight across the board, if it's 2%, 1%, 5%, whatever it might be.
I think 10% is way too high right now.
And I'm
For
just
sure.
making this, I'm just throwing numbers out there, because I haven't had a chance to sit down and, it hit me while I was sitting up here.
10% for my budget would be 46,000,
Yeah.
so,
But
but I could do it if I had to, I would do it.
But then look at the other part, then if we cut, let's say, the police department, 5%. Now, how much are they gonna make up on overtime? Because that seems to have been an interesting area.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. We'd have to look at their budget, because I can't remember off the top everything that they have, but there might be some places where they could make some cuts, and maybe some departments are able to make more cuts than others. Maybe it's just a matter of us sitting down and talking with each department head and saying, we have to do this.
Well, and certainly, I mean, the no amount of cut that we can logically do today is gonna fix the entire deficit.
No.
This is gonna be, 2, 3, 4 more years down the road where we can finally get to that flat budget, or that balanced budget, and start replenishing the cash reserves. But also, we're still looking at projections, we're not looking at your actual numbers, correct?
Correct.
So I'm gonna ask a great feat of you. Is it possible for you to wrap up last year's budget so we can get some actual numbers in front of us?
By when?
Yesterday.
No, that's not possible. Please don't ask me to do that.
Well, I know we're coming back here again next week. Certainly that would be a daunting task.
I can certainly try. I have to work on it anyway, because I have to have the budget, the fiscal year actuals, and the final budget for fiscal year 22 all has to be done by the end of this month. So no matter what, I have to have it done. So I can certainly try to have it ready by next Thursday.
I'll supply you with a package of coffee.
No, I need that drink you had from Sonic the last time with the Red Bull in it.
We haven't even discussed the fact what kind of race or what we're gonna do. You know
Right.
what I mean, so actually, we're still not doing solid numbers, we just doing what we're gonna say.
Well, with those
So actually, the
projections,
commission has to decide, do we wanna give 2% across the board, or what do we wanna do?
well, with those last numbers you gave us, that was off the scenario where we gave $1 hourly and 2% salary, correct?
Correct.
And trimmed off at about 300-something thousand.
300,000, yes.
So that was fair across the board, plus cut some out.
Yes, and that includes the departments that we supplement. The general fund supplements, it would include them as well.
So if we're at 5%, that was a deficit of 553,000, and at 10%, that was a deficit of 280,564, correct?
Yes, correct.
And have we decided which one we're gonna go with?
Well, I would like to see what the actual numbers are before we decide on a percentage, because maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's in the middle at 7%.
And maybe it could be the essentials at 2.5 and the others at 5, you know?
Just something to give us something to look at, other than just going off the top of our heads.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We can't really decide because the commission has to make a decision what type of raise we're gonna get. And that's what I'm saying. And once we know that, then we can work
Yeah.
on the budget, because then by then we have a definition of how much money we're gonna need. We cut in 5% of the department, but then we still have to do the raise, so you have to increase that 5%.
Well, so then with this thinking, if we're looking at an across the board cut percentage wise, then I would say we move forward with giving both hourly and salary a raise, especially if we can make up some of that within the cuts. That way, compression hitting, to me, that's just the most fair way of doing it, is giving the raises out.
Okay, well, because we gave 5% cut across, but then we get 2% increase or whatever. So we actually just,
So I'm using the numbers that already have the raises in there, so that I was taking 5% and 10% off of that number with the increase for the salaries.
it would go at 2%.
If we did the 2% for salary, $1 for hourly, and then the $11.50 minimum wage.
Is that fair across, I mean? No.
Is it fair?
Well, no, but is it fair for one of the
I think,
20 some odd years as compared to the new kid coming in?
I think it's important that the staff get something. They deserve it. Especially since last year,
Right.
only the minimum wage got the raise. So I do think that all staff deserves a raise this
Right.
year.
So, and again, these numbers were with that raise projected.
Yes, and that was the $800,000 deficit.
So with 5%, we're able to cut off that 300,000.
Yes. But we can, again, if you wanna wait and give me some time to work on budget, I can see if we can try to have it ready. Okay.
Things always look good when you're looking at the
Yeah.
sky.
I just see some numbers because- And I also would like to do a report and see if some of these departments are not working with skeleton crew already. Because we demand a lot. Our residents demand a lot from us, and then we get on our staff. We want stuff.
Well, we have, when we've had openings, we haven't had any applications, so it's also very difficult to get somebody to apply. For example, there was one for water, and
It's still open.
it's still open, we haven't had any
The
applicants,
one
so.
that we had withdrew their application.
So what?
Why?
The one application, the applicant we had was internal and they withdrew their application.
Oh, okay.
So that's the other issue is, they may be skeleton crew, but because nobody wants to apply,
So
so.
is that why they're skeleton crew, or is it because, it's worse now that they're missing, but because the complaints were there for a while, a couple of departments was, we don't have the manpower to be able to do what you people are asking for. We were constantly out after them for the potholes, we were constantly after them for the cemetery water, and that's the result. That was constantly the response we were getting. And that's what I'm saying, is we have to be careful. If we're gonna cut, we can cut on areas that the city can survive on, and that would be on services. But there's certain services that are mandated that we cannot, in no way in heaven, be able to do away with or cut anything.
Well, and it's not just the city that's having trouble finding people to work. It's all over.
It's
Nobody
a
wants
higher
to work.
price, yes,
Everyone's
station, right?
sitting at home.
Yeah, if they did away with that, now you have to really, make it, what is it, pretty quick. to change it.
They're still finding that people are not applying for jobs.
So Commissioner Moya, what services would you recommend that?
No, I was just wondering what we look at, you know what I mean? That's why I was having the city manager do the recommendation on it. And the reason I'm looking at that is because, I'm just concerned, because we get complaints and then we get on people's, Mark's case, Mark has to get on that department head. you know, and it's like, yeah, but we don't give them the equipment or the material to work with, how do you expect them to do anything?
I mean, because from what I'm seeing is if we were to cut a service, the only service I can see that we can logically cut, it will not go over well. I mean, recreation will be the only service that we could logically cut from. And our kids are already going without enough. I know some of the fitness groups, they go and they walk around the rec center. I'm not sure if they're doing it now, but I know
The
that.
elderly people are
So in
senior citizens.
yeah, and so we can cut that one service out and make up a $200,000 deficit. But it would come at a price of
You know, and
quality of living.
cutting a percentage from the budget doesn't necessarily mean it cuts a position. Much less, it doesn't mean we can't add a position. You know, there are a lot of knickknacks, and I'm not gonna speak for any of the departments, but there's a lot of things that add up sometimes that if we go into some of these departments, we're gonna see stacks of stuff that, okay, once again, if I overbuy on my inventory, that's payroll that I might not be able to make because it's sitting in this instead of as a cash flow. So not necessarily, you know, and I haven't looked at the numbers. Like I said, everything looks good when you look up at a cloud and you see a formation, and then you look back later, that formation's not there. This could be the same case.
And I agree with you, it'd be great, but if we had an inventory, you know what I mean? Because when we were asking for all these potholes to be done something, they didn't have it, they couldn't buy the actual.
Well, and that's, you know, that can go back on the department heads. They can do their inventory and start tracking, you know, speaking as a business person, that's what I do. Twice a week, we inventory and we watch the tracking of how things, the utilization of everything.
Yeah, but.
And I'm talking the smaller items.
And that's, I'm just using this as an example of what we had been brought before the commission. And then, you know, the poor guys are everybody was screaming, they were filling in the potholes with dirt or whatever it was, sand or whatever. You know what I mean, and they just go away, it was a waste of time. But they tried very hard, they're good people. But this is what I'm saying, I would like to know what kind of inventory are we talking, who has the most inventory, what's the oversupply of inventory before we do anything, because they're operating already at a scoundrel level, and then we're coming back and then saying, well, we're cutting 5%. Now, the only time they can ever get a part is when they order it, you know, one by one, you know what I mean? When we ordered, like the valves, we needed some valves, they had ordered, they didn't have them in stock, they had to order them. And that's what the warehouse was doing at that time, was ordering valves whenever they need them, not because they had them in stock.
But they would have the money there.
It was taking 2 to 3 weeks just to get here.
Yeah, well, and, you know, that's not uncommon, you know.
But if we had them on, I mean, if they had them on stock, we wouldn't be able to do that, you know what I mean? And so, that's what I'm saying, they might not have any supply of stuff.
For sure, like in water and wastewater, we have to absolutely have stuff on hand. If we have a big water leak, we can't leave people without water forever.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
But you have your priority items on certain, and that's what I'm getting, you can have your priority items, and that's what I just, you know, cutting the budget gives you a chance that they can look at, okay, we're not saying we can't do without, but do we need as many? And it may not, I'm not talking valves, the things that, you know, puts people out, those are what we consider a priority 1. Then you got your priority 2s, you got your priority 3 items that when I was in warehousing for years, you know, you have your hot items, you have your priority 2s and your priority 3s. The priority 3s are the first things that you look at, okay, well, how much of this, and believe it or not, a box of gloves is over $100-something.
No, I know, we
And,
used
you
to
know,
for the lab work.
yeah, you know, so, and that's just one of those items at a lower level. Are we going through to where we need 4 cases? You know, and that's something that department heads, you know, they actually have, in my opinion, is what they get paid to do. You know, monitor their inventory.
Well, and there's so back with the nickel and diming, so some departments have, for example, a line item, special equipment. It may only have $500 in there. Well, if you don't ever use it and you end up moving it to a different line or you spend it at the last minute, is that something that you could cut? The travel and per diem, for example, I believe it's on my budget. Well, if I'm not gonna go travel and decide that that's not a necessity right now, then you take that off and you save that money.
And technically, correct me if I'm wrong, the money's not gonna be gone. If you took your per diem off, it's gonna go to a spot and it's not gone. However, if we put in her budget, it's obligated until she decides not to use it. So, in other words, it's no longer available for that extra valve that we need at the cemetery. But if she decides, okay, I don't need $500 in per diem, I'm gonna use you, Michelle, because you're here, and I won't get rumors spread. So she takes that $500, says, you know what, I can do without that $500, I don't travel as much, so it goes back into one of the funds. Now we need that valve, and that budget's almost spent, we've got that money there, but if it's still sitting on hers until, and correct me if I'm wrong, that money's obligated till the end of the fiscal year.
Correct.
So we can't.
And we do have department heads,
You can
last
do bars,
fiscal
huh?
year, they were very, conservative with their budget. I think almost every single one of them had savings, and I'm hoping that's the same way again this year. And if that's the case, then that does mean that they can be cut somewhere if you're having some savings. So we'll
And I
find
have
out.
noticed that over the last few years, the department heads have done a great job.
They have,
They understand where we're at with the budget, and it's very appreciative to see that they go to those extents. But,
And
we
they
gotta
do.
send something in, and we gotta show something, in my opinion, we gotta show that we're working on taking those steps forward. I would much rather have that money on the side for those extra valves and have it obligated and not used until the last minute. That's me.
Okay, I just wanna make sure you people are aware that when we start getting huge complaints or somebody is going a little on the interesting side, that their water or something's being shut off for a period of time because we don't have that stuff. I want you guys to understand that we better have an answer. And the answer might not be because we were just being cheap and not decided not to allow that items to be bought ahead of time.
Well, they would be able to buy
I
it.
think everyone said that.
There's nobody saying they can't buy the stuff, it's just, they're gonna have maybe a smaller budget. When I say smaller, it could be 1%, whatever Rochelle can present that we all agree upon. That's all, I'm not saying that they gotta hold off on their buying, they can purchase their stuff.
5% will take an impact in any department.
It could, no, like I said, I'm just making suggestions, I would like to, actually see this, if you can do this before the next meeting, I would like to see that, to see if, what we're discussing is either, not a good idea or a better idea.
Well,
But we gotta start with something.
Tighten the suspenders a little bit more.
why don't we do this? Why don't you have the city manager and the finance director get together and give us a recommendation on the percentile of 5% cut across? Or versus the departments that we would think would be suitable to, not departments, but areas that we can cut and be able to still maintain where we're at. A functional community.
It would be tired, remember we have the holiday too, so we lose Monday, and poor Rochelle's been having to do payroll, she's been having to do billing, she's been working Saturday, Sunday till 8, 9 o'clock, so it's. Yes, we need to get something soon, but we need to be realistic, I don't wanna run her into the gun either.
I'll buy you a copy.
Well, the whole deal
If it was
is,
that easy. Yeah.
well, we have to have answers to be able to work, we can't just say hearsay. And so, if we get some numbers and some stuff, we want to be able to look at that versus and how much the deficit would be with
Okay,
each recommendation.
so you want some options so that you
I
as
like
a commission
two
can
options,
choose?
At least
Okay,
a minimum of 2.
And we do meet twice more before the end of the month and listen to you, correct? At least.
Yes.
Twice.
or I can call another special meeting.
Just meet twice.
We have to work extra, y'all do too. So all joking aside, I'm assuming that what I'm hearing, we're wanting to have another budget meeting for next work session, correct? Next week?
Yes, but by then we should have some guidelines, some guides on which way we're gonna go. Whether it's gonna go 5% or we're gonna do the other, what we have to do is some sort of cutting. I like to have numbers so I can work with numbers, and if you can give them to me ahead of time, I like to see them ahead of time. Because when you come here, you look at this, and you got all kinds to go through, and I like to just compare them and see where.
So the next meeting is on the 8th, right?
Mhm.
And then the following one is not until the 22nd?
Yes.
Please don't kill me, Angelica. But
I know what you're gonna suggest, because I'm already thinking it.
What?
July 15th,
Yes.
yes.
So what I was thinking, this is what I was thinking, is if I can get numbers by the 8th to at least hand them out, because I cannot guarantee that you'll get them ahead of time. And then we plan to have another work session or a commission meeting on the 15th. So you guys have a week to review them and then come back and we make a decision then.
That'd be good.
Would that work?
A little more background.
Could we do it not on the 15th, because I won't be here on the 15th. I've already got plans to be in Colorado.
So when are you leaving?
I am leaving on the 15th. No, I'm leaving on the 14th.
Okay. How about the 13th?
It's my daughter's birthday.
The 13th is.
When will you be back there?
I will be back in time for the next commission meeting. I'll be home on the 19th. And the next commission meeting will be on the 22nd.
We're kind of close.
So would you, Mayor, would you be able to review them and then somehow give your suggestion on which way you would like to, whatever your recommendation would be?
Sure.
At least that way that they would have
Okay.
your opinion. It's not that I don't want you there, just.
No, I know that it's, I mean, I know it's inconvenient, but reservations have been made for a long time, so.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be fine if y'all wanna, if you don't mind,
So no discussion of the budget for next Thursday, right?
on the work session.
Another work session.
No discussion. It's not gonna happen until the 15th of July.
That's
Is
what I
that my
was.
understanding?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
saying,
No, that's what
I'm not sure if we're striking next week in replacement of that, or if we're doing it.
Well, I think Rochelle said she could possibly get us the numbers by the 8th, and that'll give us some time to, actually look over them and before we have the final discussion.
The final discussion and vote would happen the 15th or the 22nd?
Of which I would hope that it would happen on the 15th. Because once you give me the direction to go, then I have to go put and get it ready for DFA
So then we'll change it to a special commission meeting.
on the 15th.
Could you do it on the 14th? If you could do it on the 14th, I could not leave
What day?
till it's on a Wednesday. I could leave real early on the 15th. If you could have it on the 14th.
It's not a problem for me, so.
It's a
I work
Wednesday,
every
I'm
day.
sorry.
I'm fine.
You get the 14th?
Yes.
14th.
Do you have anything going
No,
on
14th, I'm good for.
on Wednesday?
2 weeks from now.
Yes.
Okay.
And time, we're gonna do it for 3 o'clock?
I like that.
I do too.
Not too late.
3 should be fine for me. 3 o'clock works.
The gentleman to my right clicking their pens.
You picked up my habit.
Get 'em.
Yes, you are. I don't click.
I don't click.
So on the 14th, we're having the budget meeting at 3 o'clock, right?
Yes. Okay,
All right.
Well, if we get out early enough, I could go ahead and
All it.
leave that night. Be ready
Where you going?
to Durango. But I mean, I'm going to Rio Rancho to go to Durango.
No, it's not.
No, I could go up there that evening if we get out of here at a decent time.
so can we schedule it for 2? And the last time that was a little,
3 cuts it close.
For y'all,
We
yeah.
can do 3, it's just that cuts it close.
3 is fine.
2
Okay.
is tough.
Okay.
For both of us.
Yeah.
I'm trying to accommodate everybody.
Well, and hopefully it wouldn't be that long if you
Study.
do your homework.
Your homework. We'll be out by 3:45.
I think that was a great discussion.
Okay. Any more?
No, ma'am.
Anything else? Now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Litchfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Duplantis.
Yes.
Commissioner Moya,
Yes.
Commissioner Guerrero,
Yes.
Commissioner Arias.
Yes.
Please turn off your mics.
No, it's probably at the office.